I cut it off a few seconds short? Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome. I need to work on a new intro, 6.5 minutes long. I think it turns off a lot of you.
Some of these streamers wait like 15 to 25 minutes, so it's really not that bad compared to some.
Fair point, actually. I maybe just add a countdown on it so people can skip it if they want. Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody is having a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining and spending your weekend at BurnEye's digital podcast realm. We have Elkman and we have Shem. How are you guys?
Not too bad, man. What's going on with you?
Just enjoying the weekend. It seems like spring has finally come to Alberta, Canada. So looking forward to no more snow. But we all know in Calgary, it usually snows on May long. So who knows? But anywho, you guys have been doing some epic research and have some things to share tonight and discuss. We're just talking a bit about it before show. Do you guys want to just get into it, or got anything else to talk about first?
I can read off this article. It's kind of quick unless Shem wants to do something right away.
I'd go for it.
Yeah, it's pretty epic, actually.
Oh.
You got the Egyptian Book of the Dead in English.
Pretty mid.
Shout out Bossman. Shout out Joe Cool. Shout out the Gnostic Chef. Phil Henry. JT. Wes H. Lou.
Snow.
Lou.
Hopefully it's not snowing. Sounds ridiculous. Are you bringing up that article or?
Oh, sorry.
That's not the article.
Okay. There we go. There we go.
Arco. So this one's from this site I found. This guy's got like a lot of stuff on mounds and mound builders and stuff in America. But I'll just go ahead and read this article because I thought it was pretty interesting. The Moundsville prison in West Virginia is one of the most haunted places in America. Why? It is so surprising to see the teams of paranormal investigators on television go to this site and completely ignore the 70-foot burial mound outside the prison gates. The mound and earthwork complex was built on the gateway to the Nephilim giants empire that ran the extent of the Ohio River. Stone towers once flanked each side of the river to let those traveling down the Ohio know that they were entering another land. So there's a map of that from said time. This map shows the burial mound complex along with the works on the adjoining bluffs. The 2 points of the bluff that are marked as lookouts were stone towers that would have been visible to those traveling down the Ohio River.
Kind of looks like George Washington's map of the forks of the Ohio, because before he became president, he basically went to Pittsburgh because the fork of the Ohio River is one of the most important trading routes for like it was contested between the English and the French because it was so important. Like whoever controlled that basically controlled the entire eastern part of the United States. George Washington was actually like responsible for pretty much taking that over before the Revolutionary War, like when he was in his 20s or 30s, I believe.
Really? Like just the choke point and the trade routes.
Yeah, there's still a fort there today. It's where modern day Pittsburgh is. It used to be called Fort Duchesne or something like that.
Wow. And talking about monuments and the mounds all throughout. And we know
massive.
Right, and there's literally hundreds of mounds throughout the Ohio area. And this article is talking about the gate to the Nephilim, and essentially it's
so it's just a little bit longer. The Grave Creek burial mound was the largest constructed in the Ohio Valley. What is a burial mound? Mounds were constructed to connect the living with the dead. They were portals to the afterlife. This is why the prison is haunted. The gate has been open for 2,000 years. Who was buried in the tomb? The grave Creek Mound was constructed to entomb a giant king and queen. So these are apparently from newspaper clippings, which I have not done my research and gone backwards, but they talk about this. Skeletons in the mound. One of the most interesting of the 5 state parks is Mound Park in Moundsville, from which the city derived its name. Probably no other relic of prehistoric origin has attracted such a study among archaeologists as the Grave Creek's Mound, which has given up skeletons of the ancients who constructed it. Aside from the mammoth tumulus, itself 69 feet high and 900 feet in circumference, there were originally no fewer than 7 mounds situated in the broad plain at that point. None was nearly equal to the one now standing, and the locations of most of the smaller ones are now lost to all expecting a few. Archaeologists investigating the mound sometimes years ago dug out a skeleton said to be that of a female because of the formation of the bones. The skeleton was 7 feet 4 inches tall, and the jawbone would easily fit over the face of a man weighing 160 pounds. That women of the ancient day were not unlike the women of today in their liking for finery was evidenced by the articles that were found beside the skeleton of what centuries ago was a flapper, 1,700 ivory beads, 500 seashells of
Ivory beads in Ohio.
Yeah, and copper bracelets were found in the vault. The beads and shells were about the neck and breast of the skeleton, while the bracelets were on the arms. There was also taken from the mound a skeleton of a man of 8 feet tall. Who is the queen buried in the mound? I don't know, but if you can read this tablet, you might be able to figure it out. This tablet was written in ancient Hebrew, and it proclaims this grave to be that of the queen of the mound builders. While archaeologists would argue against this theory, while providing no theories of their own, there are giant tombs in great numbers around the Moundsville prison and mound site. And yeah, these two just talk about like they finding skeletons, more skeletons that range from 7 feet 6 to 6'7". The grave of a giant. So they're just talking about removing giants from all these places that are very close to this. Giant human tombs and burial mounds that were portals to connect the living and the dead. Is there any wonder that the site of the prison is haunted a short distance downriver where the sightings of Mothman occur?
And what I like about that, the tablet, it's very similar to the Burroughs Cave tablets and the tablets that were shown by Harry Hubbard. And I believe they're also in Ohio, but I'm going to have to double check on where the Burroughs Caves are from. That's fascinating. Where is there do they have a source of the picture of that stone by chance? The tablet?
No, I can search for it though off in a second. But yeah, there's no source. It just said this tablet was written in Hebrew and proclaims.
So what was it saying about the Nephilim?
That the mound earthwork complex was built on the gateway to the Nephilim giants' empire that ran the extent of the Ohio River. Stone towers once flanked each side of the river to let those traveling down the Ohio know that they are entering another land. So they're jumping from Nephilim to giants and what have you. So it's a little bit confusing, but they're finding giant skeletons all down the Ohio River.
What year did they mention, like what year the empire existed or something for more context to what they might be talking about? Because, for example, like
1922.
That's when this is from, or
yeah, when these articles are from, like the first article, like the first discovery article of the bones of giants are in 1908, 1916, 1922.
Well, to me, when they say Nephilim, if we're gonna, we can think about it just like in a secular way, maybe for a second. It could be talking about just, kind of like what it says. It's like a half breed, basically. Could have been like Europeans breeding with the natives, for all we know, if we're thinking of it in a purely secular form.
Or potentially the elongated skull breeding with the indigenous locals, potentially.
Yeah. So, what's interesting, there's a book called The Zohar, which is like a bunch of people that are talking, like sages. We'll call them sages. But it says, there are 5 races of mixed multitude. These are the Nephilim, the fallen, the Jabborim, the mighty, the Anakim, the giants, the Riphaim, which are like another form of giants, and the Amalekim. So basically, like, I guess these are the 5 races that were destroyed pretty recently, according to these people.
Huh.
All
That's cool.
different species of hominid, and majority of them giants, apparently, or
Yeah, keep in
gods and
mind,
demigods.
this is like a very important text that over like, hundreds of years, different people are debating this stuff and talking about it. So these people actually believe this is real stuff. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty fascinating. That mound is massive. They said that still existed because I never heard of that. That would be the largest mound in Ohio if that's still around.
Yeah, the Grave Creek Burial Mound. See if I can find it on Google Earth.
Yeah, if you pull up my screen, I can show you this book that I just read from. So yeah, this is it right here. Moses De Leon. They're always somehow Moses, but most sources say that this guy is who's said to have been the author of it, but most sources agree that it was actually this guy who wrote it. That's why both names are here. But some sources, if you look this up, will say this is the original author, but he's a lot older, so it's more than likely just a middle-aged forgery. But yeah, this is what I read right here. Hashem, the name.
The Shem.
Exactly. They talk about mounds and earthworks in here too, because they were used by all of these civilizations for multiple reasons. Like they would build them just as simple as to like conquer a fort. They would build earthworks around the fort to be able to climb over the walls. So I mean, there's multiple reasons for them.
That's very interesting. And this is from the Zohar?
Yeah. So let's read some more then, I guess, while we wait on Milkman or Milkman. Elkman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is let's see. I think it's these guys right here, the Rephaim. Except for
So
here,
that,
they're calling them shades, but in another translation, I remember them being called giants as well.
yeah, I was going to say the Rephaim, I believe, are one of the giant tribes or races. You just mentioned them too, right?
Yeah, this is just like a one translation of it, so that's probably why it says something strange. But the Rephaim are the 4th group of mixed multitude that mixed with Israel. If they notice a time of distress coming upon the children of Israel, they abandon them. Talks about them basically just being annihilated because they don't listen.
They don't does it say who annihilated them or how they were annihilated?
Well, in this book, they call God multiple names. They call him Hashem. They call him Jehovah. They call him Yahweh. Adonai.
And was the Great Flood that annihilated them or something else?
I think it was something else. I don't remember what it was though. Sorry about that.
Yes, the Book of Giants.
So yeah,
Okay.
Anakim are another one right here. So let's see, destruction of Amalek. No. Yeah, I don't remember what it says. Why they got rid of them or how.
Seems like corroborating evidence or just an initial source of Noah's floods, potentially or essentially, and that the Zohar was around before main monotheistic religions, right, in the Middle East?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, like I said, it's more than likely just like a Middle Age forgery because the original author was like a martyr, and the Simon Bar Yochai guy, that's who they say it wrote it, but most scholars agree it was Moses de Leon instead. So it does have value in it, but I mean, there are a lot of texts like that that just, for some reason, they lie about the date for whatever reason, just to make it seem more legitimate, I guess. But as you can see,
Right.
it's just people like talking about what these verses could mean.
More legitimate by changing the date. That's hilarious. Do you want me to flip?
Did you ever
back?
find the stuff you're looking for?
Boom, we got a big mound. Oh, next to an acreage or a golf course? What is that?
No, it's the prison.
The prison.
Looks like the bunny mound. Remember that mound that in Dublin that we were like, we don't know if that's a mound or not. That's literally exactly what it looks like. That same spiral going up the side of it.
Yeah. That's that big mound. But there's like a ton of shit around here too.
Right, well, because that original description said that there were 5 main mounds in that valley left at that time. That you just had read off at the start, right, Elkman?
I believe so. Maybe there's another one here. But yeah, this is Grave Creek, and it's a very strange looking place. Whenever you get clouds, that means it's a good spot. So probably right there.
Right. No doubt. It's funny how that works. By the river there, maybe though, let's, if you don't mind, zooming in and see if we can find any of those monuments that it was originally describing, but probably not in the urban areas. It'd probably, if any remain, they'd be like before or after the city, right?
Yeah, there was that map. I could check, but
good call, right? Compare back and forth for sure. Use it as the reference.
But yeah, that could be a whole mission on its own. Nice.
Strip mine.
Yeah. Yeah, the Grave Creek one is right there. And that if that's the biggest one too, this thing must be massive. Massive.
Oh, if that's a prison next to it, it looks like it's as large or larger than the prison.
Yeah, and this is where all the tunnels run through apparently too, so. But I'm not too familiar with this area.
We're going to have to send Shem in for some boots on the ground.
And then
is it up? Are you still on Google Earth? Because I wanted to compare that mound with what Bunny Mound looked like.
Yep, I can get it back up.
Okay, let me know when you're ready. I'll give you an address.
Okay.
Oh, you gotta share screen again. Send the milkmaid.
Share screen. Window. Google Earth.
I just sent the address in the private chat.
Okay.
And then after that, there's a request for you to look up another place in the live chat.
Send the milkman. Okay, so we're gonna have to go a little bit north of here, though. That was just a close location that I knew about. So once it stops rotating, I guess go north.
Right here?
No, I believe it's a little bit more north of here. Trying to remember. It's been a while since I've been over here. I'm sorry. Yeah, Ballantrae Community Park. That where it says Ballantrae Community Park. That's it. There's that bunny mound right there, right underneath the words. See how it has a spiral going up like that too? Just thought that was a weird similarity to the mound you were showing before. I did
Yeah, and
some.
I found one in Toronto or Hamilton or something that has the same thing too.
I got some
Very
footage
good
pulled up
point,
of
Tim.
when I went there. If you want to pull up that footage real quick, so you can see how big it was in real life.
Right? Like they're claiming that this is like newly freshly made, but does not really appear to be. So it's very suspicious to say
It
the
could be,
least.
but it's just weird how it did have the same shape. It's more evidence to show that it could be old. I don't know. We did look at the old photos. There's Skunky Boy again. But yeah, and then they had there's another mound that I saw it on the highway the other day. I'm gonna have to pull over and turn my blinkers on to get a video of it because it's on private property at like the Budweiser brewery or something. But
Really?
it's like a pretty big mound and it has an actual door going into it. Like it's the weirdest thing. I'll get a video of it in the next couple weeks next time I drive over that way. Something it's
Please
not.
do.
This
On
one is
Budweiser.
I don't know. I think it's like a little bit outside of their jurisdiction. There's another company behind them, but regardless, it's fenced off, and you're not really supposed to pull over on the highway right there.
Of course they make those rules.
It's like one of these doors, but it's like this, but it's on the mound itself. It's pretty big too. I was shocked. But yeah, pretty cool. Bunny mound.
Bunny Mound.
What else we got?
It'd be interesting if we could find the Bunny Mound already built on this map.
I didn't see it on any of the old maps, but
No. Fair.
that
So-
William C. Mills map, at least I didn't see it on there. But one thing I did find in relation to that William C. Mills map was these random ruins that are over here.
Sorry. Flip back forth.
Oh yeah, good. If Elkman's ready, go ahead. Because yeah, I'm just stalling.
I'm not real like.
But
yeah.
Yeah. So on William C. Mills map and by Old Dublin, there's a mound that's missing that I've been looking for, and right in this area, I found these remains of these stone pillars, and this is like a field that someone's farming back here. But in the middle of the field, there's an area that has trees still randomly. So I don't know if there's like some sort of burial site there or a mound there. I haven't walked out there yet because I don't want to mess up the crops. There's always cops and stuff by here. Every time I've been down there, I've seen like at least 3 cops. But so yeah, these pillars are just randomly sitting here, and if anything, these are at least from the early 1800s because I recently posted a photo of the Leather Lips Monument up in close to Powell, but it's like considered Dublin still. And according to the Historical Society, the rocks that are the wall that's at that site, along with the stones there, are all from at least 1812. And these stone walls, I show it here in a second in the video, they go all the way up and down Riverside Drive and all the way up and down High Street, like for miles. These same walls that are this kind of stone in this old
Do
Dublin
you
area.
mind putting it on full screen?
Yeah.
Please. Go.
So yeah, I just took footage of these ruins, whatever they are. That I don't know. I have no idea what they could be. Like I said, there's a farm right here, residential neighborhood to the left, and then these 2 pillars are the only things left. They're about, I would say, 300 yards to 400 yards apart from each other.
Oh, really? That far apart? So they're not a gate.
Yeah, like this one is to the west, and there's one down to the east down here, about 300, 400 yards. I walked down there. I was gonna walk out to the field, but I changed my mind, so I started walking over here, and I was like, I don't know if I can get out there today. Man, it's really blurry for some reason.
Always happens when play videos live.
So you could kind of see the field back there, but there's a cornfield. The corn was like probably 2 feet tall or something so far, so I didn't want to like step all over it. But yeah, I walked down here. It's about 300, 400 yards, and this one still has the top on it. The other one didn't. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. And then these are I show a little bit of the walls too. So these stone walls are for miles and keep in mind the ones around Leather Lips monuments are the monument is the exact same stones, but those ones are from the 1800s. Some of these walls, if you go down, like take a right on some of these streets, they will be like the highest one I saw was like 8 to 10 feet tall of these stones, and it's on both sides of the street all the way through Dublin. And
It's
I went to
crazy.
that Ferris Mills earthwork site sometime last year. They're all across there as well.
Really?
And you can see like the hills, some of the parts of the hills where the dirt's falling down, you can see these walls underneath them. But yeah, these walls are just all over Old Dublin, both sides of the street. Like I said, that okay, so when I go back to I'll pause it when I go back. So down here behind these houses is the Scioto River. It's a pretty massive river. On the other side of the river is what I'm talking about. These walls are also on the other side of that massive river.
So they're potentially ancient, pre-built, like flood defense walls or something.
I think
Maybe.
I think that there's a lot of construction around the side of and it's Olentangy rivers because a lot of the old earthworks and mound sites are along them as well, and it seems like they're built up kind of in a certain way. I went to the can't remember the name of the mound off the top of my head, but it was in Worthington. It's in the middle of a neighborhood, but driving up to the mound, it seemed like a lot of that was man-made structure going into that. So why is this interesting at all? Well, Leather Lips was killed in 1812. That's the same time that these stone walls were allegedly built. These buildings that you're looking at right here, these are facades on the outside of them. Underneath these facades are cabins, and I know this for a fact because there's two houses up here that are getting rebuilt or whatever right now, refurbished, and they took off the outside of the building, and they're literally old cabins. When you go to these graveyards in this city, Old Dublin, some of the graves are from the early 1800s, some of them are from the 1700s. So the Native Americans in this area had integrated with the Europeans at this time period. The Native American, this is before the Civil War and everything else. So the Native Americans were basically just like building these houses and living alongside of the Europeans. Now, what does that mean exactly? You could say whatever you want, but Leather Lips was put to death for witchcraft. And this grave right here is on the National Historic Sites list, but as I walked up to this one, I noticed the door was kind of open, so I started trying to like film it, and these people came up behind me, and they told me that they had actually seen it open up before, and there's no bodies in there. There's just lawnmowers. So it's
Really?
weird. Yeah, and it says it's Washington's Vault from 1884.
A crypt full of lawnmowers.
Really strange. But
Who
yeah,
killed
across
Leather Lips? Who was the ones who killed him?
his own people, like the guy Sells, the guy who like founded Dublin or something.
Mhm.
He tried to save Leather Lips. He apparently, according to the story, he was actually standing in the crowd when they were executing him. And he was trying to save him, which to me sounds weird because why wouldn't the Native Americans just kill their enemy that was standing right there? Because he worked with Sells and the other people, the older like Irish of old Dublin or whatever. He worked with them. Like Leather Lips was like friends with them. So if they're mad at Leather Lips for working with him, why is the guy allowed to be in the audience watching Leather Lips get executed? Why isn't he getting executed?
And
was-
able to like trying to stop them and stand. Strange story indeed.
Yeah, I'm looking into it still, but I don't think I have any footage of the Leather Lips thing. I think it was on Instagram. But yeah, the very sketchy situation with the Native Americans. So I was talking about George Washington earlier. This National Road 40 or whatever, it goes all the way across America. He was helping build that as well. They even admit that it was an old Native American route. So before the United States existed, basically, they already had this route across America using the same road called Broad Street. In Columbus, it's called Broad Street, but it changes names as it goes throughout the country. So they had already had this set up a long, long time ago. See if I can find the Leather Lips thing real quick. Yeah, so this is the Leather Lips Monument. You can see the walls are right here. According to the Historical Society, these are the original walls from the early 1800s. Same exact ones we just saw. This is on the other side of the river, and this goes all the way up and down Riverside Drive, which is like I don't even know how it's incredibly long. Like it, for example, from here to downtown Columbus it's probably like a 35 to 40-minute drive, and it's all the way down there, and then it keeps going north.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like just nonstop walls.
Like that's a major project, and they're saying it's one of the first things that was built, and it still remains.
Well, I haven't looked into what their explanation is for the other walls. I mean, they probably say they're just decorative since they're in front of people's houses, but you can clearly see it's the same. I mean, it's the same walls. And the other ones, like I said, there's some that are just coming out of the grass, coming out of the side of the road.
And
Yeah,
you
I'll take
said
a look.
also around the mounds too, right?
Yeah, the areas where the mounds were down. Let me see if I can pull up the video of that mound actually. Jeffers, I think it's called Jeffers Mound. Must be public. No, it's right here.
Jason just sneaking into the stream.
So yeah, this is the one I was talking about. Driving in here, it looks like this entire area is pretty much man-made, getting up to it from the river. A little bit further south of this location, there's this what
Do you
looks
mind
to me
full screening again? Sorry.
yeah, it's all good, but it looks to me like there's a hill fort that's just completely unmarked, like about, I don't know.
I wonder if we can find lidar scanning of this area, and what like that if there's structure to the mound. And
I found like finding lidar for North America is not as easy as it is in other places.
That's pretty difficult. But yeah, I didn't really even get footage of what I'm trying to describe, but this is the mound. It's kind of hard to get footage of it because it's so massive what I'm trying to describe here. Basically what you have is like almost like a step pyramid coming up from the river, but imagine it as some like large scale step. So I don't even know what there's probably an actual term for this that I'm unaware of, but just imagine like for miles you have this
mega terrace.
yeah, like terraces basically.
But essentially like a mega pyramid or pyramidal complex-ish structure.
I would say there's, if anything, there's structures built on top of it, but I'm thinking more along the lines of just for what you were saying earlier, like since the river actually used to flood and stuff a lot too, they constructed dams to control that. So I was thinking more along what you're describing earlier for like flood control and stuff. But it definitely seems like it's man-made, and I'll try to get footage of the other place I was talking about in the future, but I haven't been able to get in there because it's locked, and a couple other times I went down there was just like a cop sitting in the driveway to get up there for whatever reason. I think it's just like a popular site. Well, it's like a popular intersection for getting on the highway, so maybe that's why. But yeah, this is Jeffers Mound. It's right in the middle of a neighborhood. It's pretty massive. Not as massive as the mound that Elkman was showing earlier from that news article, though.
Yeah. And then what do you the distance between the two, are they in the same like formation or area, or complete different parts of Ohio?
I don't even know the one that Elkman was talking about. I have no idea where it's at.
Well, should I bring back Elkman's story so we can look more into it and find it? Do some map Google Earth comparison if you're up for it.
Okay. I've moved on though in this to Chicago.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, we're moving on to Chicago then.
So that was at the, let's see, I might still have it pulled up somewhere.
The mound you sent in the Bernie, that's the largest mound apparently still around in Ohio, the one you just sent.
Really?
So
yeah, that was someone in the chat posted that one.
So in this research I did like an hour before we met today, I was able to find 3 serpent mounds in Chicago. 1 by accident and 2 kind of from this. So Chicago, Illinois serpent mound confirmed by university anthropologists. Isabel Watson's original drawing of the Serpent Mound in Thatcher Woods from the 1930s. According to Native American traditions, this mound was constructed by the Winnebago Indians. According to Jim Hodnap, one of the founders of Thatcher Woods Restoration Project, the Serpent Mound is 800 years old. Hodnap described the serpent has with a huge egg within the mouth of an enormous snake. Like the mound in Ohio, a large fire pit was found within the egg. Hodnap also pointed out that the serpent predates the Potawatomi Indians by hundreds of years. The Serpent Mound was first discovered by geologist Isabel Watson and verified by anthropologists from the University of Chicago. According to Hodnap, the serpent is going to be restored using Watson's original map. I will show you guys on the map in a second, but there's also these ones. So the most southerly point on the west shore of Lake Michigan, where the traces of ancient labor can be found, is about 4 miles south of the state line between Wisconsin and Illinois. These works are doubtless burial places and consist of a series of round or conical mounds, 9 in number, from 3 to 5 feet in height and about 30 feet in diameter, arranged in a serpentine row along the crest of a ridge of sand, an ancient lake beach, which extends for many miles along the lakeshore. But this one is in Chicago too. Also found in Chicago is the Serpent Mound located within a park in the city. The location of the Serpent Mound is somewhere in Thatcher Park. So we've got Thatcher Park and Thatcher Woods. But there was 3. There's no doubt that. So this one, they say it's in there, but he has yet to find an exact location. And then we first saw this beach in the road 3 miles north of Racine. It traveled at intervals in the state of Illinois. But there was this map, which I have a better one of, but just notice how they cut a chunk of it off. I don't know why. I'm assuming it's because of this fort here or this mound here or something, but all the other maps I can find online do not have that part of it, but they are in higher definition.
Gotta love how they always seem to do that, hey?
Yeah.
The fire in the mouth and the egg was actually fascinating. I mean, I wonder if that's common for the other sites. It's the first time I've ever heard it.
No, it's in the it's in the other one, like the big serpent mound that everyone talks about.
And it said it was in the Ohio one, right? That's wild.
Yeah, and in the one in Canada here too at Rice Lake, I think, as well.
There's a
Canadian the reason it's fascinating is because when you think about the eternal fire in like ancient religions, the primordial egg is another term for what that's supposed to be representing. So the fact that it's an egg and it has the burning fire inside of it has connections to Greco-Roman mythology.
Yeah, we've got one too in Rice Lake, Serpent Mound. But this is one of the only ones that Canada will recognize. This is the Ohio one, I believe, but there is one here in Rice Lake too.
Did I hear you right? You said that each one of these sites, the egg had fire in it, or did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So what it? Wow.
At least
because you have to think about it. The snake is consuming the primordial egg with the flame inside of it. Potentially, that's what it's doing.
Right.
The primordial egg with the flame inside of it represents the female. So this even ties into like the Garden of Eden with the snake, basically, like, you know, consume, like causing the female to fall. But after this happens, there's like a verse that says that the snake, you'll crush the serpent's head, but the serpent will bruise your offspring's heel. It's not, I guess it's not entirely connected, but it's still an interesting comparison, I guess. Definitely has to Greco-Roman mythology.
Absolutely. And alchemical, right? The snake, the circle eating itself essentially in the flame.
The Ouroboros.
Usually a flame in the middle.
So yeah, there's this serpent mound. I lost it right here.
Where's this one? Is this one in Chicago again?
Yeah, these are all in Chicago. There's 3 right around here.
Wow, 3 in Chicago alone.
Yeah, so this one I don't think we like talked about in there. I just found it looking for serpent mounds in Chicago. This is the serpent twin mound. But the Thatcher Park one is somewhere here. I'm assuming around here somewhere. If I Yeah, there's another one there too. So yeah, there was a few in Chicago. I wasn't aware of it.
That's crazy. Neither was I, or probably anyone.
Where's that? There's a map. This
Right,
one's hard
what
to
are-
read from. Yeah, this one's on here somewhere too. That's the second one. I'm not sure if this is the same. Yeah, Thatcher Park one.
Thatcher Park, Thatcher Forest, you said, and then where was the third one that you had just shown?
So why does everyone freak out about the Ohio one if there's so many fucking mounds?
Right, like I guess it's the largest, but still, like none of the
You have to
others
drag them right under it, dude.
ever heard
I
of.
forgot about that. Get into those historical figures.
I don't know what else I got here right now.
Wait, what?
Oh, these two, the Cohens. Oh my, or Cohorn. Cohorn's very similar to Cohen. Can't really talk about them in the
The
street,
Cohenim.
right? That's how you get canceled. I have no idea.
As being historical.
I am making 0 claims at the moment, especially on who made the star forts.
You want me to check out one of these? This is just a
Yes,
whole website
please.
of them.
Absolutely, more the merrier.
Top 10 in Indiana.
Circular mounds, astrological calendars, or more snakes?
Mound State Park complex in Anderson, Indiana. Yeah, these ones are
Wild.
pretty. Yeah.
I just found out
150.
there's bison in Columbus again. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna go check them out.
Here's another one, Serpent Mound near Holton, Indiana.
Another certain serpent mound in Indiana. So that's
Huge.
6 now you covered. Yet they only talk of the one in Ohio.
Yeah, and then there's like a henge complex. I haven't checked this one out yet.
There's a henge complex, so they do have astrological alignment. That wonder how many, or probably each site contains one.
Yeah, this one's supposed to be like a horseshoe in Toledo, but it says here near Fort Wayne, Indiana. I don't know if they're 2 separate ideas or. Oh, yeah. But there's horseshoe ones too. I know. I thought the site was pretty cool. It was just in my bookmarks from like 10 years ago. It just said check it out sometime, so I did.
Check it out sometime.
Here we are. But yeah, not a lot of these. Like, I'm sure we have as much in Canada too, but they're just not recognized.
Which fort is that? It's looking pretty
Winchester, Indiana.
Bastion Fort-esque.
I'll check it out on Google Earth.
Heck yeah. Shout out John Supp, Aurorian, Mike Does, Anthony Williams, Bushwhacking History in Buffalo, Valley Parks, everyone in the chat.
Oh, it's going to give me one of those. Maybe. It didn't go anywhere, so it's like a
refuse to find location.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's a contractor in Indiana, so I don't know. Where else could it be? Sorry, I got too many maps. Winchester, Indiana.
I've actually heard of that too. Not sure.
Dun. Fortifications.
I hate this spinning shit.
What's interesting to me is that when some of these European explorers came over and they saw these earthworks and mound sites, they were describing them as Roman forts. They were built in a similar design as Roman forts.
Yeah, this building
It's
looks
like the height of the walls, the number of entrances, the layout, the stuff on the inside of it.
They're the same as Roman forts, you said?
That's what some of the books say from that time period when people are describing them.
Interesting.
I don't see it. You figure it'd be near the speedway, though. Maybe it's that whole section. Hard to say. Someone else want to take the reins here for a little bit?
Yeah, Sham, you want to share a little bit of what you were talking about Chicago before we started, or what did you have? Oh, you got that's a pretty big man. You got up right there.
Why not? Wait, what do I have up?
Right.
Oh, that's the Miami Berg Mounds. Yeah, that's the one that they sent in the chat earlier. This is the large one in Ohio. Still, this is around the area of where Tecumseh and the Prophet were back in the good old days on the War of 1812. But yeah, let's get into Chicago a little bit. Why not?
Go Chicago.
So this is more about the idea that the buildings were temporary. So this is one of the books that was along with the Chicago exposition. So it's describing the material that they used to build the buildings with. It says the material is impervious to water and is permanent when used in buildings, although it costs less than 1/10 of granite or marble. Staff was invented in France in about 1876, and its first use where acquired prominent was the buildings of blah 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 Paris Exposition. So the people who are around at the time of the Chicago World's Fair building the buildings think that the material is permanent. And that's not all. I know this is hard to swallow for some people. So this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica 9th edition. This is from 1875 to 1889, just around the time of the World's Fair. Let's see what they say about gypsum, which when you go to plaster of Paris in this book, it says see gypsum. So now we're looking at gypsum. Let's see, is this the right one actually? Maybe it's not the right one.
And is the Paris of France or Paris of Ontario?
Okay, I'm sorry. It's plaster of Paris. That's what it's called, but it doesn't need to be. The reason it's called that is because the original source of it was in Paris. The gypsum mines around there they would use to create it. Even like I forget if it's Herodotus or Diodorus Siculus, but one of those two authors, all the way back in the good old days, mentioned plaster of Paris in their ancient text. So this has been around for a long time. So this is actually what I meant to share. The 8th edition, not the 9th edition. The 9th edition I'll share after this for a specific reason. But in the 8th edition, this is what it says. This sort of gypsum forms the best plaster of Paris, as it resists the weather better than pure gypsums. Keep in mind, gypsum is used to build buildings. They give an entire recipe here how to cook it to withstand and be used in buildings. So just to be fair to the other side, we will go to the 9th edition where it says that plaster of Paris this is a different way of making it. According to this version, there's another way of making it where it's largely used for obtaining copies of statuary figures, coins, medals, sculptures, carvings, and also for taking casts of natural objects. It is also employed as the material for molds for electric deposits and for manufacture of embossed and pressed pottery ware. Still more extensively, it is consumed in the finishing of internal plasterworks in houses for making cornice moldings and other architectural arrangements, positioned sheltered from the weather. So here, they're admitting that there is a type of plaster of Paris that's made because it doesn't resist the weather. But with that being said, there clearly is another version of plaster of Paris with the same name, with a different recipe that's used, intended to be permanent. And once again, this book, along with this is like a complete detailed description of the World's Fair, giving what was inside the buildings, talking about who did what, blah, blah, blah. That was printed alongside with it. And once again, they're saying that the material you used is permanent. So
What? When was that dating that they were using it for these permanent structures?
this is for the Columbian Exposition in 1893.
Right? So it's like they're saying that they're building with permanent building materials.
There's more too. I mean, they literally get like this is what you don't hear about is all these monuments that were there. They go into detail about like everything that's there. You have obelisks, you have everything. There's multiple buildings in here where they talk about it being not even plaster of Paris, just made from marble and having like basements and these foundations made of, different limestone, marble, whatever. I think I have a couple bookmarks actually of stuff. Let me see.
Another thing that's odd about Paris and the pastor of Paris is I'm going to talk about Paris, Ontario, Canada for one paragraph. Paris was named for the nearby deposits of gypsum used to make plaster of Paris. The material was discovered in 1793 while the area was being surveyed for the British Home Department. By late 1794, a road had been built from what is now Dundas, Ontario, to the east bank of the Grand River in what became Paris, called the Governor's Road. The town has been referred to as the cobblestone capital of Canada. But
Wow.
there's also other reasons why it's been named Paris too, because in New France, that's where they chose to be. There's many different stories on how it got its name, but this is just interesting because it says this is where plaster of Paris comes from. So I just wonder if it's another word soup and they're talking about this Paris when they're talking about that plaster of Paris that you speak of as well.
Yeah, there's different, meanings for it. It's basically a gypsum-based material. You cook it a certain way to a certain temperature, add certain things into it. It's either permanent or used for molds, just like anything else. You have different versions of concrete. This is not some kind of like conspiracy theory or weird thing. It's something that happens with various materials all throughout manufacturing or whatever else, art, pleasure, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Even the house you're living in right now, for example, is a wooden frame with plaster. So I would argue that it's not designed to be permanent, but the people who sold it to you will argue that it is designed to be permanent.
That's funny.
So
very true too. Right?
I didn't mean to hijack. I was just
sorry. Yeah. Put back.
No, you're good. That was a good share. because that shows how they not only have gypsum available in America, but when these people, the merchants, the interpreters come to new places, they just name all the cities and the rivers and everything. They just name them the same thing that were like the places that they came from, basically. It's in their tradition. It's actually one of their laws. Okay, so this is from that same book, but I just thought this part was very interesting. So it says, Russia has ever been the friend of the United States, and the presence of her mighty navy in American waters was a bulwark of strength to the loyal American heart in the hour of a country's terrible struggle. So in 1893, Russia was seen as America's greatest ally, and their navy was
against the British.
Sailing in American waters. Gives some kind of credit to the idea. I think I don't remember what year the book was printed in, but you have that book called All of the United States of America, and it has literally like Russia listed, China, Tartary, all this stuff.
Right, I remember that one. It's very strange.
So
it predates like most of the nations it's listing too, didn't it?
Let's bring it up. It's probably not that hard to find.
Yeah, please do. That one was something else.
I can't remember what the actual title of it is though. That's gonna be a problem. I have it somewhere, but I mean, I don't have it ready to go. Sorry, but yeah, I think everyone knows what we're talking about because people have talked about it for years now.
And we've covered it a couple times in the past. I'm pretty sure.
But yeah, I mean, pretty interesting stuff. Another weird thing about these people is that they'd leave these. Back in the day, they used to claim like territory or have boundary markers. They would build these. A lot of times they were obelisks. And they were like boundary markers that had like the name of the person on it and the year that they were there. The one in Chicago is really strange, and it's apparently been moved a couple times. I had a picture of it somewhere, but I'm having trouble finding it. Have you guys ever heard of it before?
No. I've heard that like statue that was at the World's Fair in Chicago has been like moved somewhere, and then someone owns it, and then the other one that's there now is fake, but I've never heard about the obelisk.
See if I can find it.
There just seems to be obelisks all over, and it's very suspicious how many what are called natural like hoodoos or just natural formations resemble monoliths as well as obelisks, right?
I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm having trouble finding that too. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
So yeah, they constructed the World's Fair in 2 years. So even if it is all like temporary staff, everything else, the amount of glass, iron, steel, I think it was like 200 cartloads of like staff or something that they used. Just I don't know.
Giant mega projects for the time period for sure. Like basically building a mini city in 2 years at that time.
Yeah, I wish I could find that the marker. Well, we want to segue into Star Forts. Why not? Maybe we can find the marker later. So speaking of forts, we have this legendary fort in Chicago that never existed. Of course, it's not going to let me rotate. It's because it's one of these sites that they don't want people seeing. But you can see right here, Fort Des Illinois, right in the area where Chicago would be today. This is a map from 1697, long before Chicago ever existed. A mythical fort that doesn't exist. But when you read the Treaty of Greenville, which is the treaty that gave the area of Chicago to The United States government, basically. It says here, one
Yeah.
piece of land, 6 miles square at the mouth of the Chicago River, emptying to the southwest end of Lake Michigan, where a fort formerly stood. So the United States government, in 1795, August 3rd to be exact, typed in their document or wrote it that there was a fort in Chicago that formerly stood. But experts today claim that this fort never existed because they're so smart. We have multiple maps that show the fort existing. We have the United States government saying that the fort existed, but people on Reddit are just so much smarter because they heard their favorite celebrity say that it never existed, right? So here's another map from 1733 by Henry Popple. Let's see what we see in the area of Chicago. I bet it won't be a star fort because I saw on Reddit that it's not. Oh, never mind. There it is. There's a star fort clearly depicted along with tons of other buildings, tons of detail. The cities that have star forts that we know about today, like Fort Frontenac, they got that one right, but no, they didn't get this one in Chicago, right? They didn't get this fort in Detroit that was there that we have evidence for it existing. They got that one right, but when they came over here, they just had no idea what they were doing.
Right? Like, just the most illogical BS ever. Like, they only would have drawn something relevant on the map that they're making that is supposed to be as accurate as possible.
Yeah, we got Quebec. They got Quebec right. They got all this. They got all the stuff that fits into my narrative right, but the stuff that's outside of it, they
Do they
messed up.
call Quebec at which 16?
This is the thing too, is we found Canada on maps way before Canada was even an idea.
Right? Like, and that's why I'm asking. What this was from 16? What were you saying, Shim? And
This one's from 1733. The
Oh,
other
sorry.
one was 1697. I think the 1697 one has Quebec on it though. I'll reopen it.
Right, like, I'm pretty
Big one.
sure it was not called Quebec at that time officially, yet they're labeling and calling it Quebec.
Unfortunately, this one's like sideways, so it's kind of hard for me to look. But yeah, here's Quebec right here. And it has like a little free energy building. A Byzantine cross actually is what it looks like to me. Because here's a cross on this building right here in Tadosek.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, for some
wild.
reason the rotation, like this website's been messed up for months. It doesn't rotate.
I think I have the same map up for some weird reason.
Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, I'll show you what the experts say. Why not? Let's check out what the other side says about this. So this is from the experts. There was never a French fort at Chicago. This persistent myth originated with the 1697 map that accompanied Father Louis Hennepin's account of his adventures with La Salle expedition. Let's see if it says anything about the Treaty of Greenville. I forget.
But hey, could they be cheating and using the word French?
Maybe.
And like there was a fort, but there was never a French fort because it was an Indian one.
Oh yeah, so they do mention the Treaty of Greenville. So the idea of a French fort at Chicago even infected Americans. That's at
Just
the
like
Treaty of Greenville
What?
in 1795, which forced the Indians to cede the area 6 miles by 6 miles around the mouth of the Chicago River. The representatives of the United States, none of whom had ever been to Chicago, also demanded in addition the French fort in quotations. The Indians replied that not even the oldest among them have ever seen or heard of a French fort at Chicago. So take what you will with that information. Keep in mind that even before this LaSalle expedition, we have these two explorers who went in this area and also documented the fort before the LaSalle expedition. Let me see if I can find that real quick.
Yeah, and I saw in the chat too saying Canada is not Canada, and I am aware of that. It says Canada on maps far beyond before Canada was ever even an idea.
Yeah, we used to actually have access to it. So this Joliet, this was before the one that was described in that document we just looked at, and they also documented well, another version of this. This isn't the right version, but there's another version where they actually do depict a fort down here. And they also have a journal that where they like write in there specifically about hundreds of cabins and all that good stuff. Jesuit missionary. But yeah, pretty cool. What else you guys got?
I'm not sure.
Did you have any questions about star forts or anything to talk about with star forts specifically? Bernie?
Oh, sorry. What's that?
Did you have any questions about star forts or anything you want to talk about particularly with them?
Sorry, I just need one moment. I'm just on the phone for a second.
You're good. Okay, so we can check out this Encyclopedia Britannica again from 1797, talking about fortifications and what they are and where they came from. The origin and side of fortification is undoubtedly owing to the degeneracy of mankind. In the first ages of the world, men were dispersed up and down the countries in separate families, as we are told in the histories of the Jews and the Scythians, who wandered from one place to another for the sake of finding pasture for the cattle. These families became in time so numerous that to form large communities which settled all together in a place from whence villages and towns had their origin and rise, but they found it was necessary for common security to surround those towns with walls and ditches to prevent all violences from their neighbors and sudden surprises. This was sufficient for some time till offensive weapons were invented and conquering became the fashion. Then walls with loopholes were made at proper distances, blah, 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 blah. So it's basically just saying that the Jews and the Scythians were the ones who came up with star fort, or not, I guess you don't have to call them star forts, but fortifications in general.
Oh, okay. Interesting. One question I had about the Chicago star fort that you're showing in the maps there, and then it was which treaty that they were specifically mentioning they wanted control of it?
The Treaty of Greenville.
When was that?
1797, I believe.
Wow.
Bring it back up again. 1795, August 3rd, 1795.
Right. So why would they just be mentioning a fictional fort? And I believe
they've been there apparently.
There's still a few like bastions in that area that we found on Google Maps before, right?
I don't remember, but I mean, the way that Chicago's built out, I mean,
yeah, there's a ton near Detroit and all through there.
Luke from Ancient Historia made a pretty interesting discovery with Chicago. There was an area where it looked like there was a man-made pier that was made in the past, and it was filled up with water. And it, based on the pictures that he had found, it looked like, what is it? Where the Bears play at Soldier Field. It looked like that area was flooded, and potentially that parts of that field or that stadium were like underwater, and they drained it out, and that's why it like looks old when it was allegedly just built.
Really?
I don't have the photos, unfortunately, but I don't think he ever did anything with. I don't think he ever did anything with it either. But yeah, we were chatting about Chicago for a little bit, and he had come across some photos that seemed to show that.
Wow.
Very fascinating.
That is gonna have to hassle him to make and publish an episode on that. That's something else. You want to take a look? Take a look on Google Earth by chance, Elkman, at that site. We can try and find those bastions again just to show them off and confirm.
Yeah.
It's not just make believe that it's actually there.
One thing that's really suspicious about the history of Native Americans, because we were talking earlier about the integration of them into Old Dublin. Well, that seemed to be a common thing throughout all of history, especially with the French and New France. the French pretty much and Indians integrated together perfectly for some reason once they started trading here. So this Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, it's like impossible to actually find the text for this, because I'm pretty sure that it will point out pretty much what we're talking about, because this is like when they forced Native Americans to start paying taxes and be officially part of the corporation of the United States of America. But yeah, even though we have all these like websites that we pay for with our tax dollars where the laws are supposed to be listed on the website, you actually cannot get like an original copy of this law. You can get a transcript of it. You can get a transcript that clearly like seems like it's been edited. Because a lot of the times when they make these transcripts, they'll translate words. So they'll just change a word to like update it to modern times because they think that they're helping people, but in reality they're just censoring what the original text said. So if anyone has any way of getting a hold of this and wants to send it to me, that'd be awesome. I've been looking for a while, I can't find it. Even though you should just be able to click right here and see it.
It's wild. Just like, oh nope, that's been expunged now.
I looked for it so much that I came to the point where I was asking like an AI chat bot like how to get a hold of it or why it's not public, and the AI bot said that people wouldn't understand the context of the law, so that's why they keep it private.
Wow. That's actually pretty fascinating. It's like
you can find everything around it, just not that. Like the rest of the book.
I was looking too.
Yeah. I think it was it and referring to it, but it's not exactly what you're looking for, because it's like it's chapter 222 and it starts off ours on 223 or something like that.
Yeah, look what you got right there, showing a pretty big what looks like clearly a bastion.
Oh yeah. There's one there. There's one across the river here somewhere, probably. Like this is all Ojibwe Park. There's like a super old village in there. Fort Wayne. There's one right here.
That one's documented.
Yeah.
Later, I guess they say.
And then there's one in Windsor, but you can't see it anymore. But I've seen it on old maps. It's like right around here, probably where the casino is or something now. It's in old maps, but it's in this area. I think the casino is probably built on top of it. But right across the river is where is it? Right here. This used to be one too. It's like an underground parking garage now. But there is a few others around here too.
Let's look at that island. What was that island there? Like,
probably Bablo Island.
Is that acknowledged as man-made? Because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So there's this one, and then there's Bablo Island down here too. Or Fighting Island. Belle Isle was where so it was private, I think, and like it was either one of the daughters of Ford or Dodge or something started like the Hare Krishnas here and like bought all this land and like did all this stuff, and they owned Belle Isle for a while, and that's how it got big, and now it's all abandoned. I think right now it's all just abandoned. It could be right here, I'm not really sure, but there is tons of forts all along here. Fort Fraser, but and all up the St. Clair River. There's a tunnel through here too, but I can't remember the exact locations of all of them. The Fort Gratiot Fort is under the bridge here.
That's crazy.
This
a lot of forts.
Yeah, this used to be Fort Detroit on old maps, but it's in Sarnia, Canada.
Really?
Yeah. And there's like a little bit of history behind that too, but it's all been expunged as well. Because I think it had to do with like a war with the Irish or something. There was like some kind of war that we don't know too much about with like the Indians and the Irish in that area, and that's how Fort Detroit changed from one side to the other. But yeah, there's quite a few around here. And then Chicago. I don't even know where we at right now.
Turn to go to the left a little bit. There you go.
Yeah, see, there's that like octagon shape there.
So there are old pictures. Zoom into that building right there that your mouse was just over. I forget what it's called. I think it's it was the auxiliary building in the World's Fair or something.
But
Yeah, where it's
can you see the
northwestern.
octagon here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly like the stuff I'm talking about. So some of these areas were drained out where Soldier Field is, and wait, where's Soldier Field? Just can you type in Soldier Field?
Yeah.
I think it's right there, but
Right.
I think your mouse was over it before you zoomed out, but just type it in. It says. It is. Wow, it looks so much different now. Wait, is this the same fucking place? Yeah, there it is. The Field Museum is right there. So this area where you see the northerly island park and up to the Shed Aquarium and stuff like that. This was at one point all underwater, but they like basically drained it out. And so when you look at the old pictures of Soldier Field, it kind of looks like some Greco-Roman stadium. It's really strange, and it looks like it had already been built in the past. Do I have pictures of that? Let me see.
Even this building across the street, the museum is.
Chicago presentation. Where's that bad boy at?
Love you, Angel Wings, and love you all in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Appreciate you. Like, look at that. That's a wild building, but those are obviously newer, hey?
Yeah. But they were there before too.
Interesting.
There's that one thing I found around here that was interesting too. It was like that weird name. Like
if I was on my Mac, I have the pictures like in my notes, but I'm on the other computer. Sorry about that. Dropped the ball a
the
little bit.
business building or something, like the business of businesses or some shit like that around here was kind of crazy.
Here, can you share my tab real quick?
Yes, sir.
So this is what it looked like earlier on, but this is definitely not what I'm talking about. But the oldest picture, this Greco-Roman thing on the side here, at one point it's like the only thing that you can really see, but you can see it's right on this side, it's on that side, then you have this one right here. All of them I think are still there, but they built the casing around it nowadays, and then there's the Field Museum in the background. But yeah, Luke had found photos where it looked like you can see that there's water there at one point and then it's gone. I hope that he does do something with it eventually. I think he might have put it into his little parody video thing, but I don't remember. But yeah, so we can go back to Elkman's. I just wanted to show that real quick.
Do I even have it open? I don't even know where that. I don't know how to reach that tab you've got.
Chicago Harbor Break is the Octagon. Gifted 5 memberships. Nice.
All right. Thank you so much, Angel Wings. Greatly appreciated, sister.
Maybe they're still in the Instagram chats. That'd be cool. We'll check it out.
I don't know where that window I'm sharing's at. It's...
Can't find the Google Earth.
No. Here.
All right. Well, while you're looking for that, if you want to, I can share something.
Yeah, that'd be
Absolutely.
good.
All right. So this guy here, Giovanni da Verrazzano, he's a French explorer who came to America in 1524, 1528, landed in New York City and called it Angoulême, Nouvelle Angul. I don't even know how to say it, but this was
When
the name of
was
New
this?
York City before it was New Amsterdam. So French had made claims to New York, and like I said earlier, they integrated with the Native Americans pretty hardcore. Like they were the merchants who came over. Their main goal when they got here was to basically set up these fortifications and then establish trade with the Native Americans, with the end goal being to marry into the Native American families and then become the leader of the Native Americans themselves. This is in journals. This is what mainstream historians talk about. If you go to like Brown University YouTube right now and type in New France, you'll probably find a lecture of a professor saying what I just said.
It's
So,
true.
like, the idea that the Native Americans were some sort of savages, especially in the Northeast where New France was, and keep in mind, New France was from the
Right, yeah,
Gulf
the
all the way to
Métis
Canada.
people. They were a
And
completely separate group of half indigenous, half French, European European French people and culture that formed and essentially now has its own nation within the nation of Canada, just like the rest of the different indigenous peoples and tribes, but like they were one of the biggest, largest forces of just people and settlement and
and
society.
and to put it into perspective, like we have the account, like the stories and like records of chiefs in Canada. At the same time, we have the first Holy Roman Emperor. So when you think about it, these people are both existing in the same time at the same world and are aware of each other. So it's not like Canada's or the Indian or Native Americans were savages. They were trading with the Holy Roman Empire and the Medicis back then. So
And trading is the main reason why these names change, because people got certain trade privileges and came over and wanted it exclusively. So the people who originally, like this guy who originally named New York City, basically they got a charter from the king, which allowed them to have special trade monopolies in that area. Then when other people who are more powerful wanted to get involved and it didn't work out, that's when you get New Amsterdam. Then they get their own charter from their leader and they have a trade monopoly on certain things in that area. Then a group of merchants who have the same privileges, but this guy doesn't want them to share the privileges, show up in New Amsterdam, and they basically say no. Shortly after this, New Amsterdam becomes New York because the King of Britain gave these specific people a trade monopoly in this area. That's what ended up forming the original 13 colonies, were these trade monopolies given to certain people in charters. If you read the charters of these original colonies, you can understand what I'm talking about, because it's basically like setting up a corporation where there's a person in charge who does this stuff. They have like a company, which is like a term for a military and other
Right,
things
like
like that.
the Hudson's Bay Company owns originally, before Canada was officially Canada, owned like 2/3 of the land that eventually became Canada,
yeah,
apparently.
and
Or
they still
supposed,
exist. They're like Saks and all this. There's so many. Yeah, they're crazy, man.
right? Like
So when they came
Hudson,
to these places as merchants originally, there were already people here. A lot of the times, the natives, right? They would build these forts, and as they would start out as these smaller forts, and then as they got bigger, they would make big. Or I'm sorry, as they got more comfortable or integrated in society, they would make the forts bigger and bigger until it was basically like the entire. That's where you get these city forts. So, what is the purpose of the forts? Well,
To keep people in. They were jails at one point
But also
used them.
think about the height of the walls of the forts as well. They fit into a specific criteria for a group of sages who need to have a criteria for so they're able to do certain things on a certain day of the week. So
For
the
their
walls,
religious practices.
yes, for their religious practices, the walls of these cities allow them to basically function on a certain day of the week where they're supposed to be observing certain laws. So it's basically like a loophole that
So they
allows
can
them
still
to,
trade.
yeah, so they can basically one of the biggest rules is they're not allowed to take things from inside of their house to outside of their house. So by building these forts with these tall walls, it's called an eruv, an ERUV, and it allows them to function normally on Saturday, whereas they were supposed to on Saturday live their lives a very different way according to the rules. Now, what is the modern star fort? We still have them today, but the only difference is you don't actually get to see the walls because now they come up with a new loophole where it's just tied to a pole. So these are imaginary star fort walls. Show you what I'm talking about here. So this, what you see here, when you go to a city and it has an eruv, this in the past, this would have been a fort, or sometimes they call them ghettos or other things. This is like they put this on themselves in an area to live inside of this area. That way they can do what I'm describing. These people are the merchants. Like these are the ones who get the charters. It's documented history that these are always the people who get the charters. They're the ones building the forts. They're the ones integrating into Native American society. They're the ones who could understand and communicate with the Native Americans when they got here, because these traders go back all the way to the Silk Road. The Radanim is basically who, like, this is just one group of people of these traders you can look up. The Radanim, they're the ones who like went along the Silk Road in ancient history and built some of these massive fortified cities that are now destroyed. Some of them still remain, but a lot of them are destroyed. This is the same concept, just in America. They had, according to some sources, like there's a documentary on my page called the Island of Seven Cities.
Yeah, Island of Seven Cities. I was gonna bring that up, and so excellent.
So that's just one example of historical sources that show that these people who are associated, the Radanim eventually turned into, did have trade set up in America. So it makes sense why these merchants coming from Europe would be able to speak with them and communicate, because they already were at one point the same people. If their languages weren't 100% similar, but they were able to understand each other, they had similar religious practices. If you look at old descriptions of the natives, they describe them as Roman, Greek, Semitic, all these different things, Tartars, Scythians. So the Radanim are before Marco Polo. So think about this. When Marco Polo traveled across China and was communicating with the Khans and working for the Khan and everything, him and his father and his uncle could communicate with the people as they were going along, because the Radanim had already established this trade route beforehand and already left behind these merchants in these places. So when they traveled there, it's basically like, hey, let's pray together. Let's hang out. We already have the same customs. You've already established this here. You've been here for centuries. This even goes back way before the Radanim. This goes back to BC times, according to mainstream history. So, I mean, all of recorded history, these people have been doing the same things. The only difference between forts in the old days and forts now, like this is Manhattan. This is the Aruban Manhattan. So this entire area of Manhattan, on Saturdays, these people can do everything that they need to do. If this was the year 1800 or 1700, this would literally be a fort.
Back when it was a fort, yeah.
But now they have these lines set up the same height as the fort walls. That's why there are these lines, because they need to be a certain height. I believe it's either 15 cubits or I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, so you can find these in a lot of the major cities. Columbus, Ohio has one, for example. Every Thursday, the rabbi in charge of this has to drive around the entire city and make sure that these lines are set up before the Sabbath. That way there's no law, there's no breaking of the laws. That's the one downside for them not actually being solid walls. But if you look this up, this represents a wall. This is why, like, in early times, when they came out with like telegraph wires, phone wires, stuff like that, they could have easily done underground, but they didn't want to because they were trying to keep this secret, in my opinion. I mean, there is some documentation about it as well, but they were trying to basically blend this in. These wires could easily be underground, just like other things that we have, but they're not. And now people are starting to find out about this. There's lawsuits about this in certain areas and stuff because people. Let's see if we can look one up.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, so legal status. So yeah, there's sometimes protests when people find out about this in their city, blah blah blah. I don't know if Wikipedia. I thought it might mention it, but it doesn't. So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
That is.
What else you guys got?
We got blank. Ooh, city of Montreal and suburbs. Montreal is a fascinating one. But the Island of the Seven Cities video, for those that haven't seen it yet on Shem's channel, it's a short documentary by Paul Chiasson, who's also written, I believe, 2 books on the topic. One of them also being called The Island of the Seven Cities, which documents
Chinese trade. It
but
says
no. Which island is it? St. John's? No.
It's in Newfoundland. It's
yeah, the island of Newfoundland, the Newfoundland Island, as the island that was called the Island of Seven Cities, and that it was the Chinese that had settled there, and they were known as Tartars.
So they can work on Saturdays.
Right, but known as Tartars, and he shows evidence of these 7 cities being there, and that the indigenous natives claimed that it was built by people that had traveled from the other side of the world, and then once white man was coming, they're like, oh, we can't be here anymore, everything is going to go to shit, and they left back to the other side of the world.
Specifically in Newfoundland, it's Cape Breton Island specifically.
Cape Breton.
But yeah, he's basically saying that the Mi'kmaq story of Glooscap is talking about these Chinese people who came over and basically enlightened these people and established trading systems and all that good stuff. And in the documentary, he shows what he calls an ancient road from aerial photography, and then he points out the old areas where there was like a fortified town, and he points out the rectangular bases of where buildings would be, because he says that the Chinese building style, they would build like a stone base but then build wooden structures on top. He also makes a comparison between the Norse language and the language of the Mi'kmaq. We could probably play like a little section of it, maybe.
Let's play the little clip at the end there, because it's some very compelling evidence, to say the least.
Bring it up.
Especially the language and whatnot with the Mi'kmaq.
See, I think this is around where it starts.
Forms, just the way the Chinese would have built. Beyond is the cleared land on the plateau. It has no history in early settlement. No Europeans ever built here. Yet there are the remains of large adjoining plots of what appear to have been farmland. And the Mi'kmaq, their clothing, the hats, the patterns on their clothing, in their craftwork, and their written language that was consistently compared to Chinese by early scholars.
So yeah, let's go back a little bit. I think part 3 is where he makes the comparison with the Tartars, but I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I believe you're correct.
Here's the aerial photos I was talking about, though, where he's showing the area on Cape Breton Island where this allegedly took place.
From different seasons.
I'm so ashamed as a Canadian I couldn't get that right.
That this mysterious road I found was actually a modern construction. built in a single day in 1952 by a local volunteer fire brigade fighting a forest fire on the mountainside, and then rebuilt by a gravel company in the 1990s, a company that had hoped to turn the mountain into a gravel pit to supply high-grade crushed stone to road builders. However, the road was here long before either of these elements. This is an aerial photograph taken in 1931, well before either the fire brigade or the gravel company. And it clearly shows a road up the side of the mountain. This criticism of the theory that the road is a modern construction doesn't stand up to closer investigation. Now, back to the site. When I started studying these aerial photographs of the top of the mountain, I thought I would find the outline of something French that had escaped history and been forgotten. That's not what I found. I found ruins that are both specific and unusual. I'll take you through some of the most important elements of the site. The first, most obvious element of this site is the enclosure. It's just below the summit. To the northwest along its lower edge, it runs along a small river. The area it surrounds measures about 1 kilometer along the long axis. Now, an additional note on Chinese architecture. The Chinese traditionally build walls using...
So yeah, that's some of the aerial photos. I actually looked these up. The Canadian government took these photos off their actual website, but there is an archived site I found that still has them on there. It's really suspicious and really weird. And
Right? Like, really?
Like,
they showed
dude, they've taken
evidence of
so much shit, dude.
Oh,
Everything.
man.
Shut down all the libraries sharing stuff too.
so this is
Well,
this is
I can't access it anyways anymore.
wait, no, this is not it. Hold on. I wish I could find the. Oh, here it is. Yeah, web art. So I found this. This is like a group of scholars who are going against this entire theory. That I found the archive website, but other than that, you can't really find any information about this. So these people took the time to debunk this guy's entire book. Forget where those pictures were though. I think it's right here. So yeah, here are the pictures. So I was able to actually find them thanks to this website. But I typed in the exact name of these photos on the website, and they aren't there. And then I tried to call the number that they had listed on the website, and even though they're open, it rang a bunch of times and then went to voicemail. And it said you had to like pay money to get copies of these or something.
Wow.
Pretty interesting stuff, but I thought they made decent arguments, but I do think Paul's arguments are really good in this documentary, and I can only imagine how good the book is. Let's see what else we got here.
Definitely agree with that statement.
One more clip and then we'll move on. See what I think it's at the beginning of part 3 where
Yeah, we're talking about the Tartar reference with them and the local Micmac language similarities. Bringing it. Were you going to play more, Shim?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you should have said something earlier. I was
Sorry.
playing it the whole time. I was just watching it by myself. So yeah, this is a pretty great portion of the documentary. I apologize.
This is a late 19th century painting of a young Mi'kmaq woman. The Mi'kmaq were a nation that was referred to by the first European settlers in ways unlike any other indigenous people in the New World. One of the most telling remarks regarding the Mi'kmaq and how they were perceived by early European visitors was made in the middle of the 18th century by a Catholic missionary who lived among them, Pierre Millard. In 1758, Millard wrote a book about the Mi'kmaq of Cape Breton, in which he asked the question, where does this remarkable people come from? And he wrote, possibly some light might be got into it by discovering whether there was any affinity or not between their language, the Mi'kmaq language, and that of the Orientalists, as the Chinese or Tartars. The Chinese or Tartars, he wrote. This is an early 20th century photograph of a Mi'kmaq couple. In these photographs showing the traditional Mi'kmaq clothing, we can see clear similarities between the Mi'kmaq and the Chinese. The short jacket, bordered along the edges, worn over a long skirt, decorated with multiple horizontal lines of various embroidered designs. The Mi'kmaq clothing on the left is almost identical to that worn by women in China, as shown on the right. And these curious hats worn by the Mi'kmaq women are worn only by the Mi'kmaq women. These hats were unique in the New World.
Very Tartarish.
The Mi'kmaq, the hat on the right is Chinese. We find the same parallels in the many decorative patterns used by the Mi'kmaq.
So yeah, there's another section where he talks more about the Tartar connection. I think maybe it's back here. I don't know.
No, I think it's closer to the end, maybe.
I would check out. I would check out this documentary if you're interested in it. It's definitely not that long. It's worth. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so you're right. Let's watch that. Yeah, this
For
voyage
sure.
right
He
here.
wrote that, starting at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, it was about 400 leagues to a place called Tartary,
We gotta go back a little bit further.
the famous island of 7 cities. Unusual reports began to appear. This is the title page from a 16th century book of navigation written by Jean-Alphonse, Jacques Cartier's navigator. In his sailing directions for the Atlantic coast of Canada, published in 1559, he wrote that, starting at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, it was about 400 leagues to a place called Tartary, a term meaning the
So
place of the Tartars or the
Tartary
Chinese.
at
Tartar
the
was synonymous with
entrance.
Chinese. These were
of
sailing
St. Lawrence.
directions to Cape Breton. He called Cape Breton
400
Island
leagues.
the land of the Chinese. Jean-Alphonse, Pierre Millard, Silas Tertius Rand, a navigator, a Christian missionary, and a language scholar, each from a different period in history, each in his own way, all pointing in the direction of China, all suggesting that this small region of Cape Breton, this island in the Atlantic, once referred to as the Island of 7 Cities, had some connection with China and the Chinese.
So this map here was Christopher Columbus's map before he came to America. This was
Right, like
a map.
how do you have that before, unless you'd been here before or someone?
Yeah, if you look at the original map, it's the only thing over here in the Atlantic Ocean. There's nothing. There's no North America over here. It's like just this, and then the end of the map's like right here. So yeah, pretty fascinating stuff.
Sweet.
But you guys got anything else, or you want to call it?
Yeah, we'll wrap her up here. Want to keep it under 2 hours, as then we can make the AI generated short clips feature. It's half decent, saves some time, usually picks out some interesting parts. But one idea with why they just had the island there at the edge of the map potentially is like, oh, are you going to risk sailing across the sea just for the small little island that may or may not be there, not showing off the actual other half of the world and landmass that exists?
Yeah, exactly. It could have had a lot to do with trading. They just wanted to keep the trading to themselves. Think about it. I mean, the resources over here, they would definitely want to keep that. I mean, that's pretty much what happened. That's what all the wars that we had up until modern times, until the early 1900s was when the America was like finally stopped not fighting each other anymore. But so just think about that. That was all about trading for the most part. This is interesting too, because this is the map of the 1893 Columbian Exposition, but it looks completely different than what it actually was. So I'm not sure why that is. But it does kind of line up more with the book that was published alongside of this, because in the original book they had talked about these sculptures of gods that were very impressive, and they're actually here in these drawings. But when you look at the pictures, they're not there, and a lot of the statues are just copy and pasted over and over again in some of the photos. We talked about this before on the channel.
Where is this?
This is the
at the World's
1893
Fair.
Yeah. And then the United States of America government building. Pretty massive. But yeah, I just thought that was, well, these aren't, I don't know.
Just huge. And what always gets me is the canals and all the water features, because that is just an insane amount of terraforming and work for what's supposed to be a temporary show or event, right?
Yeah, both of the same stuff too.
Yeah.
Trying to find the building I was talking about real quick, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. But yeah, let's do it. Appreciate you having me. Shout out to the chat.
All right. Well, thank you both. Appreciate both of you coming and spending your time sharing your research with us. And yeah, appreciate you. Appreciate the chat. Thank you, everyone. And wish everyone a blessed Sunday, rest of your weekend and week ahead. And I believe next week, are we still hopefully you're hosting Phoenix Protocol, and we'll get the inside story.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but if it does, it'll be fun. For
sure. Look forward to it. Thank you all, and we will see you on the next one. Ta-ta.